The scanning begins. The alien fleet hung silently in the vastness of space, its massive ships blocking out the stars like a dark cloud. Above Earth, the invaders had finally found their target. They had traveled across galaxies, conquering every world they came across. But Earth was different. The moment they arrived, they felt something strange in the air, something that made them hesitate, even if only for a moment. Zarin, the fleet leader, stood at the center of his command deck. His sharp eyes watched the Earth through the viewports. It was a beautiful planet, but it was also a dangerous one. Humanity had been silent for so long, but now their warship had finally appeared. "Initiate the scan," Zarin ordered, his voice firm, yet tinged with a hint of uncertainty. The officers around him moved quickly, fingers dancing across glowing panels. The massive warship from Earth sat like a giant shadow in space, its sleek design glowing faintly against the dark backdrop of the universe. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. A part of Zarin wanted to dismiss it as another primitive human creation, but another part told him this was no ordinary ship. The scan began. The data filled the screens, and the officers' eyes widened in disbelief. The Earth ship's energy readings were off the charts. Their technology was far more advanced than anything the invaders had expected. The numbers showed a power so strong, it threatened to overwhelm the entire alien fleet. Even more shocking was the ship's size. It was larger than any human vessel the aliens had encountered, bigger than entire cities, and brimming with firepower. One officer turned to Zarin, his face pale. "Sir, this ship, it's not like the others. We are seeing energy levels we have never recorded before." Zarin's heart pounded in his chest. He had never been afraid of anything, but there was something unnerving about this situation. They had scanned planets before, taken down fleets of ships with ease. But this was different. The data wasn't just impressive, it was dangerous. They had underestimated humanity, and now it was clear that Earth had a weapon capable of fighting back. Zarin pressed a button, bringing up the ship's weapons systems. His eyes narrowed. The Earth warship was equipped with weapons of unimaginable power. He had expected to see primitive guns or lasers, but what appeared on the screen was far more advanced. Massive energy cannons, missiles, shields. This ship was built for battle in ways the invaders had never seen before. "Can we disable it?" Zarin asked, trying to push aside the fear rising in his chest. His mind raced with possibilities. The invaders had never faced a challenge like this. The officer at the controls hesitated, studying the data. "I'm not sure, sir. The ship's technology is beyond anything we've encountered. We can try, but it may not be possible." Zarin clenched his fists. If they couldn't disable this ship, if it was as powerful as the scans suggested, they were in deep trouble. He needed to act quickly before they were in a position where they couldn't escape. "Prepare the fleet for attack," Zarin ordered, although his voice lacked the usual confidence. He wasn't sure what they were up against, but they had no choice now. "Ready everything." The officers scrambled to their stations, but Zarin remained in place, staring at the massive Earth ship on the screen. The ship glowed brightly, a symbol of power and defiance. The more Zarin looked at the ship, the more he realized that this was no ordinary human ship. This was something special, something beyond their understanding. He watched the screen for a long time as his thoughts raced. The more he studied the data, the more a cold feeling spread through him. This wasn't just another battle. This was a turning point. If they lost, they would lose everything. He could feel it in his bones. Suddenly, an officer turned to Zarin with a new report. "Sir, the Earth ship is moving. It's turning towards us." Zarin's heart skipped a beat. They were ready. The humans knew.
They had known all along that this day would come, and now they were preparing for battle. Zarin had hoped for a quick victory, an easy conquest, but it was clear now this would be no simple invasion. The warship was moving towards them with a sense of purpose, as if it knew exactly what was at stake. Zarin could almost hear the hum of energy growing in the Earthship. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't just a fight for control of a planet. This was a fight for survival. He turned to his officers. "We will give everything we have," he said, his voice filled with resolve, although his thoughts were clouded by the fear that had taken root in him. The Earth warship was not just a ship, it was a challenge, and Zarin, the fearless fleet leader, knew this battle would change the course of everything.
The desperate counterattack. The battle raged on, but for the invaders, every passing second felt like an eternity. The once confident alien fleet had been reduced to a disarrayed mess of scattered ships struggling to regain control. Zarin stood in the heart of his command deck, his eyes locked on the view screen, watching in disbelief as his fleet, once a symbol of unmatched power, was being decimated by a single human warship. One of his officers, pale and trembling, glanced at him with fear in his eyes. "Sir, we've lost half the fleet. The Earth warship is unstoppable. Every attack we launch barely scratches its shields. We can't get through to it." Zarin's jaw tightened as he tried to push aside the fear gnawing at him. "We cannot retreat now. We've come too far. Our honor is at stake." But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't about honor anymore. This was about survival. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price for it. He had led his fleet through countless conquests, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Earth warship was unlike any adversary they had ever faced. Its technology was light years ahead, and its resolve was unshakable. The Earth ship fired again, sending a barrage of deadly projectiles toward the invaders. This time, the blast didn't just disable a few ships, it vaporized an entire battalion in the blink of an eye. Zarin watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated before his eyes. "Sir, we need to regroup. We've lost half the fleet. The Earth warship is unstoppable. Every attack we launch barely scratches its shields. We can't get through to it." Zarin clenched his fists. "We will not fall apart. This is just a setback. We will counterattack." He turned to the officer in charge of the weapon systems. "Deploy the final weapon, now!" A tense silence fell over the room as the order was relayed. The final weapon was the alien fleet's last hope, a devastating, planet-killing laser designed to destroy anything in its path. But even as the weapon powered up, Zarin knew deep down that their chances of success were slim. The Earth warship had proven it could absorb everything they had thrown at it. Would this final weapon be any different? The hum of energy filled the command deck as the massive laser mounted on Zarin's flagship came to life. For a moment, the entire fleet seemed to hold its breath. The invaders had launched their deadliest weapon, hoping to destroy the humans once and for all. The beam shot forward with blinding intensity, cutting through space like a blade. It hurtled toward the Earth warship with unrelenting force, but just as it was about to strike, something incredible happened. The human ship's shields flared brightly, absorbing the energy of the blast as if it were nothing more than a spark. Zarin's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. The weapon had failed. The Earth warship was unharmed. Before Zarin could process what had just happened, the human warship launched a counterattack of its own. This time, it wasn't just a single blast. It was a storm of energy, a barrage of missiles and beams that tore through the remaining alien ships with terrifying speed. The invaders barely had time to react before their remaining fleet was obliterated, leaving nothing but drifting debris in space. Zarin stood frozen, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair as he watched the destruction unfold. The invaders were being crushed under the relentless power of humanity's warship, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The tables had turned completely. The fear that had been building in Zarin's chest now consumed him. He had no plan left. He had no more tricks up his sleeve. "Sir, our fleet is gone.
One of his officers whispered, unable to hide the terror in their voice. "We're out of options. The Earth warship it's too powerful. We're losing." Zoran turned slowly, his gaze sweeping over the wreckage of his command deck. His heart sank as the reality of their defeat set in. It wasn't just a battle they had lost, it was an entire war. The invaders had been defeated by a single warship, by the humans. For the first time in his career, Zoran felt completely powerless. He had led armies to victory, conquered worlds, and crushed any who opposed him. But this was something else. The humans had outsmarted them, outfought them, and now they would pay the price. His mind raced, trying to find a way out, but there was no escape. He had failed. The aliens had failed, and Earth had won. "Prepare to abandon ship," Zoran ordered bitterly, his voice hollow. "There's nothing more we can do." As the remaining alien forces scrambled to escape, Zoran took a final look at the Earth warship, its glowing hull shining in the distance. He knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, and they would not be easily defeated. The invaders had learned a painful lesson. Never underestimate humanity, especially when they are fighting to protect their world. The unforeseen aftermath. The remains of the invader fleet drifted in space, broken and shattered like a pile of discarded metal. Zoran's flagship was one of the few ships still intact, but it was a hollow shell, its once proud hull riddled with scars from the battle. He stood at the helm, staring out into the vast emptiness of space, the weight of their defeat pressing down on him. His heart was heavy, his mind still reeling from the fact that they had been defeated by a single human warship. But as the remaining invaders scrambled to regroup and retreat, a new, unexpected presence emerged on the battlefield. The Earth warship, which had once seemed like an unstoppable force, now hovered in space, its glowing surface pulsing gently in the quiet darkness. Its power seemed to hum with a quiet, almost serene energy, as if it had just completed its task and was now waiting, watching. The invaders had never encountered anything like it, a weapon so perfect, so flawless, that it seemed almost unnatural. Zoran's thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice from behind him. "Sir, there's something strange happening." He turned, eyes narrowing. "What is it?" The officer hesitated, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's the human ship. Its energy levels. They're changing. It's not attacking, but it's broadcasting something." Zoran's pulse quickened. Could this be some sort of trap? Was the human warship luring them in for a final strike? He had no choice but to investigate. "Bring it up on the screen." The view screen flickered and then came to life, displaying the human ship in all its glory. But this time, Zoran saw something different. The ship's massive hull, once covered with weapons and defense systems, now displayed something new, a message. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an ultimatum. It was a call, a signal broadcast directly at the retreating alien ships, one that radiated across space like a beacon. Zoran watched the message appear on the screen, glowing in bright, bold letters. "We do not seek war. We seek peace." For a moment, Zoran stood stunned in silence. The message wasn't a battle cry. It wasn't an expression of hatred or revenge. It was an invitation. Humanity, despite everything that had just transpired, was offering peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. He had spent his entire life conquering worlds, crushing any who opposed his fleet. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. This wasn't just a human victory, it was a statement. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. He had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed his fleet. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. This wasn't just a human victory, it was a statement. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. Zoran had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed his fleet. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. This wasn't just a human victory, it was a statement. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. Zoran had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed him. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. Zoran had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed him. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. Zoran had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed him. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. Zoran felt his breath catch in his throat. Zoran had spent his entire life conquering worlds, conquering any who opposed him. He had seen countless civilizations fall, but this was different. The Earthlings had the power to destroy them completely, but instead, they chose to reach out, to offer peace. "Sir, we've detected a response," another officer said, his voice trembling. "It's coming from one of the remaining alien ships. They're sending a signal back." Zoran's gaze hardened. Was this a surrender? A plea for mercy? His mind raced as he considered their
A new dawn. The final remnants of the alien fleet had scattered across the stars, their ships limping back to their distant homeworlds, leaving Earth's orbit empty and still. The Earth warship remained in place, a silent sentinel in the vastness of space as the remnants of an intergalactic battle slowly drifted away. Saren stood before the communication panel, his hands clasped behind his back. He had returned to his flagship, but everything felt different now. The weight of their defeat pressed down on him. But it wasn't just the loss of his fleet that lingered in his mind. It was the message humanity had sent, the offer of peace after all that had transpired. It was something Saren had never imagined. The invaders had seen countless worlds fall, civilizations crushed beneath their feet, but never before had they encountered a race that, even in victory, sought a better path forward. His fleet had been obliterated, and yet the humans were offering something far greater than survival. They were offering hope. "Sir, we've received the response from Earth," one of his officers said, breaking Saren's thoughts. "They're extending an invitation for you to meet with their leaders to discuss terms for lasting peace." Saren nodded slowly, the weight of the moment settling in. He had led his fleet to many worlds, conquered many civilizations, but now in this quiet moment of defeat, he understood what it meant to truly lose, not in terms of battles won or lost, but in realizing that the future of his people could no longer be built on the ruins of others. He had no illusions. This would not be an easy transition. Peace, especially after such destruction, was fragile. There would be those in his ranks who would never accept the terms. There would be those who would want revenge, who would call for another assault on Earth. But Saren knew better now. He had seen the power of humanity's resolve, and it was a force unlike any he had ever known. The communication panel beeped, signaling the incoming message from Earth's command. Saren's chest tightened as he pressed the button to open the channel. The screen flickered for a moment before a human face appeared. It was a woman, her expression calm but resolute, a leader in the truest sense. She had the same air of quiet strength that he had seen in the Earth warship, the same sense of purpose. "Saren, I am Admiral Naomi Cross of the Earth Alliance. I am here to discuss the future, not just of your fleet, but of both our peoples." Saren studied her face for a moment, his mind racing. This was the moment of reckoning. How would they proceed from here? Would the invaders take the offer of peace, or would they continue to fight, blinded by pride and anger?
"We are listening," Saren replied, his voice steady. Despite the uncertainty that hung in the air, there was a sense of respect in his words now. Respect for humanity, for their resilience, and for the strength they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. Admiral Cross nodded, a small but reassuring gesture. "You've already seen the power we wield. It's not just in our ships or weapons, but in our ability to choose the future we want. The war is over, Saren, but now we must work together to ensure that it never happens again. There's enough space in this galaxy for both of us to thrive, and it begins now, by putting the past behind us and forging a new path forward." Saren's gaze softened. The Earth Commander's words resonated with him more than he cared to admit. Peace was not an easy path to walk, but it was the only path that could ensure a future for both their peoples. He had seen the destruction of his fleet, the loss of his people, but he also saw the humanity in Admiral Cross's eyes, the same humanity that had offered peace even after their enemies had unleashed such violence. "You're right," Saren said quietly. "The war is over. We can either rebuild or we can destroy each other for good. I choose to rebuild." Admiral Cross smiled, her eyes reflecting a shared understanding. "That's the first step, Saren, the first of many." The screen flickered once more, signaling the end of the communication. The transmission ended, but Saren stood frozen for a moment, lost in thought. Earth had not only defeated the invaders, they had shown them the path to a new future. And now it was his turn to walk that path, to rebuild what had been lost. As he turned to his officers, he could see the confusion and hesitation in their eyes. The aftermath of their defeat was still fresh, the wounds of their lost fleet deep and painful. But there was something else in their expressions too, something that Saren had not seen before. It was hope. "Prepare to make the jump to Earth," Saren ordered, his voice carrying a weight he had never felt before. "We have a new mission now, a mission of peace, and it starts today." The officers exchanged uncertain glances, but they complied, knowing that the future was no longer in the hands of war. The invaders had learned the most difficult lesson of all. Peace, though fragile, was the only true victory. As the alien fleet made its way toward Earth, the first steps towards a fragile yet hopeful alliance began. The road ahead would not be easy, but both sides now understood that the strength of a people lay not just in their weapons, but in their ability to rise above conflict and build something new. Saren had fought many battles, but this one was different. This battle wasn't about destruction. It was about the creation of a future that would begin with a single word: peace.